Hello there and welcome to reallycoolExcel. This video shows you how to use a combination of the Excel functions sum and if to design formulas that will sum data cumulatively. We'll also be using absolute cell referencing and autofill too, for that matter. There are several other videos on the reallycoolExcel site that cover sum, if, absolute and autofill, so you might want to check these out at some point. In this example, we'll calculate a monthly budget spend into an annual total, cumulative each month. And we'll end up with a solution that's really quite elegant in its design. Here are some figures for the first few months of the year. In this column, we need a cumulative figure that adds each month to the previous cumulative total. So, where to start? Well, the first one is easy, equals B2, which puts January's figure here. But where do we go next? We could do this, equals B3 plus C2. And if we replicate the formula down through the other rows, we'll get something that works. Both sides of the formula change as we replicate, so B4 plus C3, B5 plus C4, and so on. But this method will result in two different outcomes, neither of which is the perfect solution. The first outcome is we autofill all the way to the last cell, but this is a wee bit untidy because the cumulative total is shown for months where there is no monthly figure. Alternatively, we could do this. Only autofill down as far as we have data, in this case July, but that would mean that at the end of every month we'd have to copy the formula down one row at a time. It's only once each month, right enough, but still a bit of a pest. And if anyone else, like the boss, is using the worksheet to plan ahead, they won't be able to see the cumulative effect of inserting projected data. So these options mean we either have too much unnecessary information, or we have to copy the formula every month. And if we plan to use the same spreadsheet next year, we'll come across exactly the same problem. Not good. Now, if you've seen a few reallycoolExcel videos, you'll have heard me banging on about avoiding repetitive effort at all costs, and building the formulas like this is certainly going to be repetitive. Let's try something else that involves some advanced planning and uses the features I mentioned earlier: sum, if, absolute, and autofill. Here's what I want to do. Set up all the formulas at the beginning of the year so that when we enter a monthly figure in column B, the cumulative total appears in column C. But, crucial difference this time, if there's no monthly figure, I want the cumulative figure to remain blank. But as soon as I do put in the monthly figure, then, and only then, do I want the cumulative total to appear. We'll design this one step at a time, which will show us where the design is clunky, and then we'll smooth out the clunky bits. So, first step. Use sum right from the off to calculate the January cumulative equals sum B2 to B2. Problem here though is when I use autofill to replicate the formula, it gives me B2 to B2, B3 to B3, and so on. So January is correct, but everything else is wrong. No use at all. But if I edit the first formula to make B2 constant, or absolute to use the proper term, like this, equals B2. Now press the function key F4 once, which changes the cell reference to $B, $2. Then, when I use autofill, the left side of the formula, B2, stays constant, and the right side is adjusted for every row below. Let's have a look. Now it says B2 to B2, B2 to B3, all the way down to B2 to B13. So this is better, but we still have one of the problems I mentioned earlier. There is a cumulative figure reported even when we don't have monthly figures entered, which doesn't look right. The solution to this problem is to combine sum with if. And just to remind you about that, if x meets a certain condition, return one value. If x doesn't meet that condition, return a different value. So I'm going to use if like this. If the monthly figure is blank, leave the cumulative blank too. But when we do enter a monthly figure, perform a sum, the same sum we set up before, and put the answer in C, like this. Equals if, open brackets, B2 equals 2 quotes, and the double quotes mean blank. So if B2 equals blank, then return blank. Otherwise, perform this sum, so we have a comma here, sum, open brackets, B2 with F4 to make it absolute, colon B2. Finally, this formula has two open brackets, and in Excel formulas the number of open brackets must be balanced up by the same number of closed brackets. So finish off with the two closed brackets. Let's read it back in English. If B2 is blank, then return blank. Otherwise, perform a sum in the cells B2 to B2. Then click the tick. As we can see, B2 is not blank. It has a value, so C2 is a sum of the range B2 to B2. This first calculation looks a bit odd, admittedly, but let's see how it works out for the other months where column B has a value. Autofill down to C8, check back over the formulas, B2 stays fixed, and the formulas are adjusted automatically in each row as we expected. Now, from C9 on, there are no values in column B, so let's see what happens when I autofill all the way to C13. Well, the first part of if kicks in. Column B is blank, therefore so is column C. But as soon as I put a value in B, the second part of if, the sum, will put the result in C. I'll fill them all in now as if I was entering the values at the end of each month. 1000, 900, 1200, and so on. So there you go, a far more sophisticated outcome than some of the clunky stuff we had earlier, using a mixture of sum, absolute, autofill, and if, with a sum built into the if formula. This is known as nesting formulas, by the way. I won't pretend there aren't other ways we could have skinned this particular cat. There are, but I quite like this method. I'll leave you now to go off and experiment, and if you'd like any more practice, download the associated Excel file from the website. And before I go, just a quick reminder that there is more information on all of these functions in other really cool Excel videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.